Hey, welcome to Feeling Twisty. I'm sitting on the back porch, enjoying the last bit of rain. I don't know if you can hear it or not. From our first cold front of the year. Yay! I want to talk today about moving or motion. I used this example talking to a family member of mine. Say you're in one room in your house. Any room, it doesn't matter. You're in that room, and you know what it looks like. You look out the window, you see what's outside, the yard, your street, your vehicle parked outside. And then you leave that room and walk to another room, the next door, down the hall, downstairs, and you look around. The room is definitely different. You look out the windows. You may see the same yard, the same street, the same car, but you're seeing it from a different perspective, a different point of view. And that's the same thing we do when I talk about what Neville talks about, moving in imagination, moving into and occupying states of being, your states of consciousness, occupying the state of your wish, whatever that wish is, that it's fulfilled. Whatever you want to be in life or experience for yourself or a loved one or anyone, that's moving to a different state, a different mood and attitude of mind. But I thought for myself it was an easy way to make it clear for my own understanding that moving in imagination from one state to another is like being in one room, my bedroom, knowing what the world looks like through those windows, and then putting myself going to another room in the house. Now, while I'm in the second room, which in this example represents our desired state, the state of our wish fulfilled, when I'm occupying this new room, the second room, I look out. The world is different from a different point of view. Same things out there, just seeing it differently. I'm occupying this new room. And while I'm occupying that new room, I can still remember the previous room. I can recall it. I remember what the world looked like through those windows. I remember that. But if I'm occupying this new room, now we're talking about imagination. I'm going back and forth. If I'm occupying the new state, just like in the physical room, I can remember the previous room. In imagination, occupying the new state, I can still recall the previous state. But I'm not giving life to that. I remember the way I saw the world. I remember the way I reacted to triggers, to things in my life. I remember all these things. I remember my old beliefs and the way I used to see the world. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm not giving life to that state anymore. I've died to that person, to that state. And I give life to this new state I'm occupying. And just like one of the definitions of motion is a change of position relative to an object. In my example of moving from one room to the other in my house, I know if I'm down in the kitchen, I'm still aware of my bedroom upstairs. But I'm clearly no longer in my bedroom because I'm seeing the world differently. I'm seeing my surroundings are different now. I remember up there, it's upstairs and down the hall. So I have an object that I can notice my change in position. I can compare it to. And it's the same thing with imaginal states, our states of consciousness. Even though you can recall your previous state, you can see now the difference because you're seeing things differently. So you've moved in imagination. And for me, there's a perceived distance. Just like if I'm in my kitchen, I can understand the distance I've covered, the distance between where I am now to where I was before, upstairs and down the hall. Physically, I get that. But in imagination, with what I'm talking about, I get that too. I see and understand that feeling. And for me, it's a perceived distance. There's no real distance. But thinking of that previous state, the old me, there is a distance, a perceived distance within me that it's like, wow, yeah. I remember how I used to react to that. I remember how I used to see the world. But if you're occupying and actually dwelling in this state of your wish fulfilled, that previous state is just a memory. I remember when I was like that. For me, it's almost like the air smells better or smells differently because, or as I'm dwelling in this new state, everything changes. The way I see the world, the way I experience it, the way those around me experience me. And the things that used to get one reaction out of me get a completely different reaction or no reaction at all, indifference. Just like physical room, looking out the windows, you see the yard, your vehicles. You go to another room, you look out the window, you'll still see the yard, still see the vehicles. But it's different now. You're seeing them differently. And for me, seeing the things in the world, political parties, seeing the news about corruption in politics or crime, gun violence, hate, one religion over another, you name it, whatever. Gin versus vodka, IPAs versus the big beer companies, whatever. My point is that I notice there's a difference. The things I reacted to, certain things in big ways before, aren't so big anymore. Some are still big, but in different ways. There's infinite states to occupy and infinite combinations of states. You could be great. I hope my air conditioner isn't too loud. I'm sure you heard it kick on. I'm going to keep going. I don't feel like stopping and moving inside. You can be really good at imagining up wonderful little band-aids and fixes for yourself. Use imagination as needed. And your basic premise for yourself for your life is, life is crap. There's a lot of crap in the world, and there are a lot of a-holes on the highway. But I can use my imagination to fix things that really piss me off. That's cool, if that's the way you want to do it. I used to do that until I realized that I'm imagining up a lot of stuff that pisses me off that I then use imagination to fix. Because I talk about, and Neville talks about going into the silence and getting into that state akin to sleep, being still, identifying, knowing what you want, and putting yourself in that imaginal scene and planting that seed in imagination and occupying that state of the wish fulfilled. But there's also just the daily 24/7 assumptions about who you are and your concept of yourself, because all of it is imagination. You don't just imagine things up doing what 2020 calls a feel it real session, or what Neville calls going into the silence. You're not just doing it then. You're using imagination all the time. So what you assume, your premise for yourself, what you assume of yourself and life in general, whatever you assume, all of these things, whatever state you're occupying, comes with a body of beliefs, and you experience those all the time. What you believe about yourself is what you experience. So I would suggest, instead of just waiting and imagining up some fixes or some fun stuff a couple of times a day or once a week or whatever, realize that you're all imagination. And as soon as you wake up in the morning, even while you're dreaming, but as soon as you wake up in the morning, be aware of what you're imagining and what you're assuming to be true. You're confronted with that all day long. So pick some wonderful states to dwell in, and know that if you're in a crappy state, you can move in imagination in an instant. To the degree you're persuaded that it's done, it's done. If you know that you were successful in your imaginal act, then it's done. It's a surety. Whatever you ask for in prayer, Believe that you've received it. Be believing that you have received it, that it's done, that it's already true. And the Bible also says that if we know He hears us, then we know He's given us whatever we've asked. And the Bible says all over the place that God hears us. You can't escape God, because God dwells in Zion, in the heavenly Jerusalem. And that's within you and within me. So there's no escaping God. So whatever you're thinking and desiring, God knows already. So if you have a desire, act on it right then in imagination. What would it feel like to have this be true? Capture that feeling that it's done, that you are that person. It's a mood, an attitude of mind, and whatever mood you continually return to becomes your dwelling place. Let me read the quote, because I'm stepping on the quote from Neville that I wanted to use. What's this from? This is from a lecture, I think it's from 1964, A Confession of Faith. Neville's talking about when you're occupying this state of your wish fulfilled, whether you've done an imaginal act or you've just captured the feeling. Know what you want and ask yourself, what would it feel like to be that person, to have that? Let that feeling clothe you. And this is where, let me get into the quote now. Now see the world as you would see it were it true. Now that's the invisible you. Now you walk faithful to this invisible you, but make it natural. Wear it just as you would any apparel in the world. As you wear it, it becomes more and more you, more and more natural. And you can tell it in your dreams. Your dreams will change. Oh, they do. Because your dreams will reflect the mood that really dominates you. Because the dominant mood really spells out the individual. That mood to which man most often returns to constitutes the man's truest self. So if I return constantly in the course of a day to the mood of success, at the end of a couple of days, it's a natural thing. I don't have to come back to it as often. Then, in a little while, I take it for granted. It's the most normal, natural thing in the world. So Neville talks about when you first occupy the state of the wish fulfilled, you have to intentionally dwell in it. Be aware of what you're thinking and your reactions. Be aware of what's going on, your inner talk, the dialogue in your mind. Are you wasting it on worry and doubt? Well, then you're no longer dwelling in that state of the wish fulfilled. And do what he says. Capture that mood of your wish fulfilled, and return to it as often as needed. As soon as you notice you're not dwelling in that state of the wish fulfilled, return to it. And the more you do it, the more quickly that becomes your dwelling place. And then, like he says, you take it for granted. It's normal. It's natural. That's why I like imagining, whether it's an imaginal act, a scene that I create in my imagination and put myself in, or I just ask myself, what would it feel like if this were already true? I like imagining the feeling of not the win. Let's talk about life. Money's always a biggie. And I've met people and seen people online that, post pictures of money and then type, in the caption, comment yes if you believe your money's on the way, or talk about imagining winning the lottery. And to me, it doesn't seem natural to imagine up the big win. Why not imagine up just being financially free, or a wealth creator, if you prefer those terms? I like financially free because it just means freedom, that I have no doubt, there's no anxiety where money's coming from, and I live the way I want to live. The problem, I think, when people win the lottery, even these people that talk about the universe bringing them the numbers to win the lottery, and then they lose it, they're broke again. Because they never changed states. They might have imagined the win. They did not occupy a new state of financial freedom or wealth creator. You can imagine some cool stuff and not leave the crap state in which you're dwelling. You can imagine up in a lottery win or a big insurance check. Oh, I got rear-ended by a company. Gordon got me a big check. And then you're broke again, looking for the next lawsuit. Maybe change the state. Change your state. And then you don't worry about winning the lottery or getting a yummy lawsuit or winning a yummy lawsuit. You don't need to worry about all the big wins because there's never a worry or you're never anxious because you know you are the source. Oh, this is a fun day. All right, guys, that quote was from A Confession of Faith, from 1964 collection of lectures called Imagining and the Transformation of Man. You can find that on Kindle. Imagining and the Transformation of Man. Love you guys. Enjoy the cool weather if you're living around where I am now. Have a great day. This is Feeling Twisty.